And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, in the Sandbox. Joining me today is none other than Kirk Teachout, social media phenom in dentistry, and overall just a good guy. Handsome guy, charming, really smart, and I get to be hanging out with you today. Kirk, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sean. It's been, over 6 months.
Really?
Yeah, I
I
saw
was
our
gonna
text
say.
messages. It was in March.
Oh, okay. Was that when I interviewed you? Because that
I
seemed
think
like a long time ago.
yeah, it may have been before that, but that was the last time we talked. So
Well, the entrepreneurial balance. You are an ambitious guy. You are an ambitious guy because you care about making big impact. And I just want to acknowledge that, Kirk, because that's a really big deal to me that you don't mind just resting in your strength. Now, resting, I don't mean in a lazy way. I mean like owning who you are and being like, you know what? I have one life and one chance to make as big an impact as possible. I'm not going to downplay anything. I'm not going to mess around. I care about changing lives, taking care of those people that have been given to me, and just living big, living bold.
yeah,
And you don't apologize for that. I really, really, really appreciate that, man.
no, my wife apologizes for it sometimes,
On your
but
behalf.
yeah, but that's something I'm working on. Somewhat is the balance, right?
So is it balance or is it harmony?
Uh I'd say it's a little both. I'm trying to get away from this term of balance because, you know, balance, and I think we've talked about this before too. Is like work life balance, for instance. Like my wife does not want me balanced when I'm with her, right? She wants me 100% with her. My kids don't want me balanced with I'm with them. They want me 100% there. So I'm trying to kind of restructure this in my mindset of like, okay, it's more of a rhythm. I go in and out of being in business, being with my kids, being with my wife, being in church, being on walks and personal gains and different things. Like I'm trying to figure out these rhythms, more or less, to flow in and out of like a river. And instead of just kind of balancing, I think you know who Steve Jensen is, right?
I don't think I do. I haven't had the pleasure of
He's
meeting this
oh,
individual.
you need to meet this guy. He's awesome. But he's one of the senior leaders at Dental Intel, and me and him were talking about how he's essentially trying to do the same thing as finding, like you said, harmony. It's like a peace, to be able to have a great work life, but also have an amazing spiritual life and also an amazing family life. Um, so
Just to take this a little bit deeper. No, I'm just joking. I was actually joking
let's
because
do it. Yeah.
no, I was joking because I was gonna say if anyone notices I'm doing weird things with my teeth, it's because I was just telling Kirk I've been pounding some ground beef because I'm trying to gain some weight, and I feel like it's probably stuck in my teeth. So I keep doing this like tongue check, like.
No, it's
So
all
yeah,
good.
that's like the antithesis of deep. That's what I kind of like about harmony, and you being kind of a music guy.
Mm,
It's like balance gives this idea of we're meeting in the middle. So maybe I need to like water down something here or take away from here instead of like, well, no, if I hit all the notes the right way, I like that was so beautifully put and common sense it sounds, but yet I'd never thought of that. My wife doesn't want me balanced. She wants me present. She wants me fully engaged in leading the family. And that's where I think I made some mistakes, Kirk. Early on in my entrepreneurial journey, it was like, okay, I've got her by my side. We're married. We're together. We're one. And now I'm going to try to conquer the world to like provide for her and take care of her and kind of live the dream. And when the timing didn't exactly manifest as quickly as I was hoping it would, at times it's like I sacrificed the intimacy we still could have been keeping
yeah.
in pursuit of, well, hold on, like, oh, I'll be able to look at you and go deep when we're on that vacation.
Mm,
You know, when we're really getting to celebrate, not when we're kind of in the trenches and I'm having to hustle. I wouldn't have done that. I learned big time that it's like, no, I can have the dream life with connection now and not sacrifice connection with my kids or my wife at all, regardless of whether I've attained whatever outcome I'm hoping to get in the business world.
right. Right. And I mean, I feel at that too, and that's something that I try to consistently grow at. But it also takes an understanding partner, um, and and really getting that feedback from them, right? So to be able to have tough conversations, and this is kind of what we did talk about in the last podcast, was being comfortable with being uncomfortable, or sorry, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. um, Being able to sit,
Wait, wait.
um,
Could we just imagine the alternative or the opposite for a
being
moment?
uncomfortable with being uncomfortable.
Well, no, there's like,
Everybody's uncomfortable with being uncomfortable.
oh, I thought you were saying being uncomfortable with being comfortable. I'm like, that's kind of cool because
I mean,
if you settle into some sort of like a comfort or
yeah,
like a status quo, being like, I'm uncomfortable, I'm throwing this off.
yeah.
That's so okay.
But
Sorry to
that was a
interrupt you.
cool one too. So yes, either way, right? So my main thing is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable,
Hmm.
right? And we've talked about how, I'm trying to teach my kids that, and the way that I do that is through cold showers. Now, not 100%, right? Because they're 7 and 5. But what we do is at the end of the shower, I turn it to cold, and they have to count to 30. And originally, they would scream and cry and like, I don't know why you're doing this to me. But now, now I'm not abusing my children, okay? Now,
We're like, no, no, guys, he's not joking right now.
yeah, no, yeah. But now, after a couple of weeks, they were like, I would come in and like, hey, you need to get out of the shower. No, I haven't done the cold yet. They've gotten comfortable with that, and it's increased their threshold to be able to just battle things that naturally they would be uncomfortable with, and really helping them with their mindset. So no,
So
I
just
think
for context, how many kids do you have?
4.
Oh, damn. Okay, that's beautiful. So oldest is 7,
Yes, so
youngest is
7.
2.
No, 1. Yeah,
Wow, congratulations.
yeah, it's been awesome. You have a lot of kids too, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But my oldest is, sorry, my youngest is 8. My oldest
oh
is
yeah,
15.
yeah. So
So
I'm in the trenches right now.
right, right. Like the second your youngest is like 5 or 6 and pretty like easy and
Sure.
mature enough to not be so socially unhinged. Or sorry, not socially, emotionally unhinged. Just because they're just settled more, whether it's a boy or girl. Just when they're 5 or 6, it's like, oh, we're pretty good. It's like I realized as a family we could now hit a rhythm and go anywhere we wanted to and do whatever we wanted to.
Right.
But yeah, we had to pay the price. We have 5, and we had 5 that were 6 and under. So
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Yeah, but I mean that's the thing is like, we have different seasons of life. You know, you're obviously, 5 or 6 years ahead of me, and now you can focus differently than what I can. I can't travel as much right now, and I don't use that as an excuse, but I use that as I'm not going to burden my wife with 4 young kids as much as possible, because I want her to ultimately be happy. Even with my ambition, with my entrepreneurial spirit, I want to make sure that I'm not sacrificing my family to grow something and make impact for everybody else, but not on my family,
so
which
Kirk,
is very hard.
yeah, the whole you caring about the value of embracing what's uncomfortable and learning to navigate the tension of that. Like is that very personal to you because of the fact that at times you didn't like that? Meaning like why is that a value that you want to make sure gets instilled in your children?
I would say because early on, and I still have this tendency because I'm pretty lazy.
Dude, I don't even know. I
I,
think I would win the award on
I
that
mean,
one.
I mean, very early on, like I didn't. I grew up with a single mom and 3 kids, and I was the oldest. I was the only male in our household, so I didn't have a father figure to really show me how to do hard things. I just had a mom who worked 1, 2 jobs at a time, and would be gone a lot. And so I was taking care of my sister sometimes. And so now that I've had really great mentors to be pseudo father figures for me and show me what that looks like, including my own father in law, I get to see, like, okay, this is what I don't want, or I saw what I don't want, and how I can instill that in my kids is just by showing them little things that make sense to them. And it's definitely not perfect by any means, but the reason why I want that is because I think it was Hermosi actually. Like he talked about how Gary Vee really paved the way for him to like just give free value, give free value, give free value. So it gave him an edge to be a generation ahead of where Gary Vee was.
Gary, did you want to just talk to him directly?
Right.
Yeah.
um, that
Wait,
would be
because
nice.
Hermosi's hanging out with you right now, right? He's
Yeah, right. And his wife beater and nose thing. Yeah. Um,
But
but
you know what? We
no.
really do get to hang out with them by consuming their YouTube and or their books.
Yes.
Like that's just a gift that you get to surround yourself with
Right.
someone of their individual calibers simply by I don't know, like yeah, partaking of their content. Like it's a gift.
Right. And it comes down to like who's in your ear the most, right? So if you're listening or reading or whatever, like to those people more, then they're one of your five people that are molding you at the time. So, but to my point was like Alex was talking about how Gary Vee really paved the way for people and him, people like him, to be a generation ahead. So like every single time you're kind of mentoring down, the goal is to give them leverage, to give them a leg up, to give them information and knowledge, and to show them and lead them to be ahead of where you got to figure out what it was. So that's my goal is to, when my kids turn 13, 14, buy them a zero turn, make them pay me back with interest, which they don't know that I'm going to put that into a fund of whatever for them, but I want to show them how to work hard, get a couple yards for them, and then show them how to do that and have them do the rest. And by the time they're 18, when their friends are just trying to figure out how to go to college and they're broke, my kids have a business and they're learning. And even if they don't want to continue that, that's fine, but they've learned something and they are well ahead, 10 or 15 years ahead of where I was at learning business and or if that's what they wanted to do in life.
Yeah, I mean, you're hitting on like the most important part, which is like stewardship. And stewardship originally was meant to be generational.
Yeah.
It's like and in every sense, like even some of the genetic and DNA studies show that like as you're like stewarding a good trait and doing a good job stewarding your own health, that can influence the DNA when you're having kids in the next generation. Now, if before you have kids you do a terrible job with your health, then some of those things can get worse and amplified in your children. So the idea is like when it comes to, I mean, not just health, but everything. The mind share that we have, the intellectual property that we have, the gifting or the propensity we have toward entrepreneurship or toward being risk averse. Sorry, not risk averse. Being fine, actually embracing risk and uncertainty and doing everything that's countercultural because we want to provide value and we want to engage with the market. We want to listen and we want to actually be empathetic people that make a difference. That's supposed to be something that continues to spiral upwards, and then the next generation it's easier for them. And yet the challenge there is that I feel like there's certain generations now that are like, I don't care what my parents did. I don't care what was handed to me. I got my own life. I'm doing my own thing. And even to the point that some people don't even want to think about procreating, which is kind of like every single generation before me that stewarded these traits and the name and the legacy and the heritage. And then all of a sudden it comes to me and I'm like, nope, it's stopping with me.
Do,
I'm not
do you
passing
want
it
to
on.
do you want to know my theory as to why?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've never thought of why. I kind of get frustrated by it.
Sure. No, I I believe it's because parents, the majority of parents live vicariously through their kids. They never actually succeeded in going after the dream that they had and doing that because culture, peer pressure, fear, whatever it was, kept them back from actually growing and doing the things that they wanted to do.
So
And so
now I want my
now,
kid to be cool when I wasn't cool. I want my kid to be the
yes,
star on the team. You know, I heard a lot about, my wife was telling me something about parents like almost like, yeah, living through their kids that are like when they're socially, like on social media, like meaning if their kid is like a pseudo influencer, I forgot what. Basically, it was the same idea, but it has to do with now with modern influencer
yeah,
social media stuff. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, get like hopefully if I'm ever in a situation like that, I'll take my hands off of them.
yeah,
And I will truly step into the background and not want to get the spotlight at all. But it's interesting because it's hard to tell the difference, Kirk. If I haven't had a good upbringing and I didn't actualize any of my dreams, and now it's like, am I wanting my kids to have a better life because of the things I suffered? Or am I wanting to, like you said, almost get that sense of fulfillment where it's like, oh, now I get to feel what it was like and live vicariously through them. But if I was the jock and if I was the one that was successful, I would still want the best for them. So it's actually very hard to tell motivation
sure.
wise because the parenting could look the same, but yet the motivation could be completely different. Why the parent wants that for the child.
Yeah, yeah. It could, it could. Um, I just, we tell our kids they can do whatever they want, right? They can, if they put their mind to it, they can do it. And in some instances, they can't. Like, just to be honest, like, they can't physically, mentally, like, whatever it is, like, they may not be able to do that. My 7-year-old right now, sure, I mean, he could eat himself to death and become a sumo wrestler, maybe. But,
He doesn't
I,
have the genetic disposition.
yeah, like he's gonna be tall and lanky like me. Like he's not gonna be short and stocky. Now my 2-year-old, he's stocky. He may, but
Kirk,
still,
how tall are you? I've never had the pleasure of meeting you in person.
I'm 6'2".
That is tall.
But I mean, how tall are you?
Dude, I'm Hispanic, bro. I'm 5'9". On a good day.
When you put
I'm
your shoes
half
on.
Hispanic. Do I look Hispanic?
I mean, you have the name.
No, no, it's not on my dad's side. My name is like Eastern European, Zayas. My
Interesting.
mom's maiden name was Lopez.
Ah,
So
look at
cute little
that.
Hispanic woman gave birth to me. Amazing woman. Is no longer with us. But my
Oh,
dad, he's the Eastern European mix of who knows what. That
that's where your jawline comes from. That makes
yes.
sense. Yes. Yeah. I'm
Well, no,
English,
you
so
can drink
that's
if
what it
you
is.
said you're English.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're just about to take a predict. Okay, so on the Hermosi Vaynerchuk idea of hanging out with the five people in our ear, do you hang out with any dead people?
Dead people, yeah, the Lord.
Well, that's a kind of a catch-22.
Yeah, because he's alive, but
Right.
still,
I was
um, no,
that was
I
borderline
do.
blasphemous, Kirk.
Well, that's not what I meant, but yes, I meant yes. So I mean, yeah, we have. I'm very proud of this because we've done this for the last year and a half now, but mainly because it refocuses our family, and we talk about this a lot. But so every night, we finish the night by reading Bible chapters every single night. And it's really cool because last year we read through the whole New Testament with our kids. So one chapter, Monday through Friday, every Monday through Friday, we'll read through the whole New Testament, which was really cool. This year the goal was to read through the whole Bible, and we're October 4th, and we have not missed a chapter yet.
Kirk, you are like a baller. I had no
That's
idea.
that's not why I say that. Okay, I
No,
don't say that to
but
brag, but
I'm telling you that just in a sense of in a spirit of honor, like way to go.
sure. I like it because it's creating habits. And at the end of the night, after all the chaos, especially like if you're at the office, things go crazy, you're fighting with people and you're just it's just a bad day. The end of the day, we end with scripture and it just kind of refocuses everything. And then we go to bed. which is really cool because it's the last thing on our minds before we go to sleep. So, and it's made a massive difference, I would say, in our family dynamic, how we approach the kids, how they approach us. And they keep us accountable too because they're like, "Oh, hey, we haven't done our Bible chapters yet." And so it's a really cool building of habits. But to be able to say that, you know, we've read through the Bible as a family, the whole thing is is a goal for this year. And you know, sometimes we listen to it if we're on a trip, versus read it, but we try to at least get the chapters in and make sure that we're talking about it too, not just reading. So,
Now, is this
so
something that got passed down? Like, did you get raised with that
no,
type of a
well,
habit?
so not with that habit. No, not at all. So that was something that the congregation that we attended last year, our theme was growing together. So the goal for the congregation was to read through the New Testament as a congregation, and then the sermons on Sunday were about the chapters that we just read. So as we were reading Sunday morning, we had sermons that our kids were like, "Hey, we just read about that." So
That is unbelievable.
it was really engaging. And now this year we're doing the same thing where we are the sermon is something either on the Old Testament or New Testament, depending on what it is, of what we just read over the whole week.
Okay, so that's kind of blowing my mind because I have been in 30 different churches in my life.
Sure.
My mom was all about like, hey, don't end up like falling in love with this, the man or woman of God, but more like what is God saying to you through the message? Like it's not necessarily about Calvinist or Baptist or evangelical or charismatic or non-denominational, but like walk with God, right? And not once did the man or woman of God share on something that I had read that week because we were coordinated and I was able to be looking at it and being like, oh, this is so interesting. Okay, God, show me something. And then all of a sudden, now together as a congregation, hey, let's maybe go a little deeper. And it's like, oh, that's so cool. I never know what's coming up. Even if the pastor's in a series, I never think about like, let me read ahead and for myself without his commentary, kind of just see what light gets shined on my path in terms of revelation or illumination. Like that, I've never even thought of that, Kirk. That's so cool.
It's really neat. And I mean, I don't know who came up with the idea. I'm sure somebody did, but still, it was a really cool thought. And our preacher's wife was actually like, "Hey, you know, because our 7-year-old is at reading level now, at like a reading age, and our 5-year-old's getting to that point now." And so what we do is we put it. I have it on my phone, and I throw the Bible app up on the TV in the living room, and he reads the first 15 to 20 verses. And so his teachers are like, "Why is he reading so well?" Well, it's because he's reading the Bible. And he's reading all these crazy names, and he's reading like just words that you should not typically see a 5, 6, 7-year-old read. So his vernacular is just expanding so rapidly, which is really cool to see. So we're seeing not only growth as a family, but we're seeing growth in our kids, us as parents, us as spouses, and just learning more. It's really cool.
But again, going back to the introduction to why you said that was like, do you hang out with anyone? And you know, obviously the rub was like, that's no longer with us because you can hang out with contemporaries, obviously like Gary Vee and Hermosi. And yet, I don't know, there's been times in my life where it's like I elevate the book. I
Yeah.
elevate the specific book and the tactical stuff, not realizing like it's from the inside out. And I've
Hmm.
now I'm like completely persuaded if I were to look at my life almost like we're in, you know, concentric circles, like if you're doing skeet bowling or whatever. A lot of the hacks and specifics, they're just kind of on the very outside, but on the inside, it's all about virtue. It's all about love. It's about discovering who you are at an identity level. And when that gets secure, everything changes. And I think that's where, you know, when I started my podcast, was it last July, and called it Innovation in Dentistry, I didn't realize I didn't really care about the manifestation of innovation. Like I didn't really care about the outward. I cared about the individual. Like who was
Mm-hmm.
the innovator? And people would kind of ask me, well, hey, like what do you have any advice on how I can innovate? And they were looking for like a model or like a hack or a strategy. And I'm like, it honestly starts with you discovering you're an original.
Yeah.
Because when you realize you're an original, and so much of it I can't unpack if they don't have a paradigm for the Father and they don't have a paradigm for actually walking with God. Because it's like when you understand the Ancient of Days actually formed you with a plan and a purpose, and you're beautiful and brilliant and glorious, and you're a reflection of the divine, you actually want to align yourself with that. Like that 100% is your best strategy for success today. Even in a branding sense, it's like who am I called to be? And from the inside out, actually just leaning into that and being. Sorry, it looked
Yeah.
like I
And
thought maybe you were gonna say something.
no, yeah, I was just saying, yes, I agree. I agree. And going deeper is sometimes uncomfortable, but super important. And you know, I believe that a lot of people get it wrong where they change the meaning based off of what they want to be and what they want to hear, and instead of taking it for what it is. And that's something we're trying to teach our kids too, is like, look, people are going to say XYZ, but what does scripture say? What does it say? Because at the end of the day, what man says is different than what God says. And so it's a really cool thing to learn. Um, and it's always like, to your original point, like, who are the dead people that I have around me? Well, I mean, I have the Pauls and the Jeremiahs and the Nehemiahs and the Isaiahs and I mean, just all these people that are talking about, man, over and over. It just kept repeating itself throughout the Bible. It's like, look, God said, look, do this and you'll have this. But if you don't, you're going to have this. And then they didn't. And then they had that. And sometimes they did. And then they had exactly what he said. And so just trying to look more on the, hey, let's make sure we do what God says, because he said that we would have this. It wouldn't always be easy, but we would have it and be able to really make an impact in other people's lives. But you also, I want to touch on you said being secure with yourself, right? And that takes deep work. And as entrepreneurs, I don't know if you're in the same position, but once again, I grew up single mom, 3 kids. So I have done nothing I'm 34 now. I've done nothing but suppress my inner work, like just everything over the last 34 years, with everything that happened growing up. But doing that deep work is super important. So, and this is really, I didn't schedule this knowing what I was doing tomorrow, but tomorrow, um, do you know who Colin O'Brady is?
I don't think so.
You need to. He's an ultra athlete, but he has broken, I think, 11 world records now. He was the first one but the main one that I really am focusing on tomorrow is the one where he was the first man to solo, uh, to go across Antarctica by himself with nothing but a sled and supplies. And he walked across Antarctica. Yeah.
Mic drop. This is where we're going to end
Yeah.
the thing because now you feel
Yeah.
like nothing you've done in your life, you're accomplished.
Right.
But
Right.
thanks, Kirk. No,
Yeah. Right. Well,
wow.
he's done some crazy stuff, and he has a book called The 12-Hour Walk. Um, and so it's a great read, but he's climbed Mount Everest 3 times. He's been on the highest peaks on all 50 states, in record time. He has rode across, oh, what is it called? Anyway, it's the spot between, Drake's Passage between South America and Antarctica. It's like the most crazy ocean in the world. Um, and he did it in a rowboat with 4 or 5 other guys. Yeah, it's crazy stuff. But Tomorrow, I'm going on a 12-hour walk, completely disconnected, no cell phone, no audiobooks, no
Okay, hold on. Where do you
podcasts.
live? Where do you live? What state?
I live in Memphis, Tennessee.
Is it cool enough?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it'll probably be in the 60s in the morning, and it'll probably get to like 75 or so. So not
Okay, because it's
terrible.
still like 100 here in
Oh
Phoenix.
yeah, no, 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 no. I'll
Okay,
be fine.
okay,
I'll
okay.
be fine. Um, but I'm going on a 12-hour walk, completely disconnected. I can't have anybody by me. I can't. It's just me and my thoughts. And my fear, just being completely honest and vulnerable, is that a lot of that stuff that I've suppressed on my entrepreneurial journey is going to come up. But I'm doing it because I need it to. And I'm doing it because I want to know who I am as a whole, not who I am now because I've suppressed all of this stuff growing up. And how can I be a better father? How can I be a better husband? How can I be a better Christian? How can I be a better coach for all my clients? How can I make a bigger impact in general? And I know I'm going to cry and I'm going to embrace it and love it. And like Colin said, though, so tomorrow's actually the reason why I'm going tomorrow in particular is it's the global 12-hour walk day. So like every year he does this the first weekend of October. But I wanted to do it because I wanted to do it last year. I didn't get to. So this year I'm going to do it. So that way I can learn more about myself and to be able to break myself down like muscle and grow stronger and bigger and better. Um, Not physically because I'm probably going to be completely exhausted afterward, but I've had a couple friends who have done the walk and they're like it's the hardest thing physically and mentally and emotionally they've ever done.
So you bring water,
Yeah. Yeah, you bring
but
water.
no food.
No, you can bring food. So it's not
Okay,
fasting.
okay, okay. So you're
Yeah,
just
so
disconnected from
yes.
media,
Yep.
entertain, like meaning no
Yeah.
music,
No
obviously.
distraction whatsoever.
Wow. Okay, so and you're trying to be in a place that's a little bit more
It
nature
doesn't really
oriented.
matter. I
Okay.
am going to be. Yeah, so I Shelby Farms is the largest urban park in the US, which is in our backyard. We go almost every weekend, but it's 5 times bigger than Central Park. So, yeah,
Wow. Wow.
there's bison and lakes and all sorts of stuff. But that's also where I train for the Leadville 100 on my mountain bike because we can do 40 miles. And it's awesome. But anyway, so I'm going
And
to be
in
out
12
there.
hours, there's no rules against you being in the buff. Like you're fine. Just
It just says, okay, that I can't be connected. And he even
they're
said,
like
he
the
was
way
like,
you came in the world is the way you have to do this. You got to get in touch. Everyone's getting arrested.
oh man, there's so many
You know,
counts of,
I'm in a weird mood today. I'm so sorry, Kirk, because
it's
like
fine.
this is beautiful, but there's still something very like I don't know. Like I actually don't know you that well, but I feel very connected to you.
Well, hey, that's fine. I like the ability to be approachable, right? And as a leader, right? That's something that's super important is the ability to be approachable. So I'm glad you're willing to be vulnerable with me.
Okay, so let's go deep there because I love where you
Yeah.
just went. Okay, so I think part of it, Kirk, is you have been very successful. And with success comes validation for things that you've done, destinations you've reached, ways in which you're valuable, ways in which you can actually help people. And yet, at the very core, that whole sense of I'm worthy of love regardless of anything that I've actually done to deserve it, regardless of any way that I've helped people. Like a kid comes into the world helpless. They don't contribute. They don't do anything to earn their mother or father's love when they cry and poop out that black meconium once they're born. Like,
Ugh, that's the worst.
and yet, like unconditional acceptance and love from parents that aren't good parents. Like we're just weak and broken people. So I really feel like probably one of the gifts that God's going to start unraveling and giving to you, and he probably already has, is this idea that like completely disconnected from the fact that you are excellent, the fact that you're gifted, the fact that you are on a path to really help people, shine a light, be beautiful. Like you are an enriching soul that really wants to just make the world a better place, like in the most real way. And yet completely taking that out. If you were just some selfish, hurt, wounded wretch, God would still want you to know that like he made you, he's proud of you, and he like wants you to be able to love yourself. I don't know if you've ever read anything from John Eldridge, The Wild at Heart. And bringing it up, it doesn't mean I'm endorsing the book. I'm just saying, it's been a while. There's a part about a son and who can give a son his name but his father. And there's something about this strength that a man gets from knowing who he is, knowing who he's
Mm.
called to be, and how that process happens from a father, and how I had a great father and I still have father wounds. Like, and
Yeah,
this isn't a slight to my dad. My dad was amazing, and yet he wasn't perfect.
sure.
So it's like this idea that like it doesn't sound like you had a father growing up from what I keep hearing.
Sure.
And yet that's a role that the father gets to actually be to you and just be like son, like you are my delight, just being, just being,
Right.
not doing, because in doing we can earn,
Mm.
and you're probably really good at that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just that like in a place of being, to be loved and to know that you belong in that place of being, that's what my inner battle has been, that it's enough. And now I choose to give with everything that I have. I choose to try to shine as bright as I can. But I know it doesn't get me anything because I'm already loved. Like I am already accepted. And I'm just so proud of you, man, that you have the courage to be like, yeah, we're going to go to some uncomfortable places in stillness and quiet and solitude. That's amazing. That is so cool.
Well, that's the point, right? Is like we can't have our highs without having very deep lows, right? And I know those are coming. I think that's probably going to be the hardest thing. It's like when you're in something or like you come upon something that throws you down into a low that you weren't just actively trying to do. um, to me, it's a lot easier. The hardest part of this is knowing that it will be tough, but going into it with a positive attitude, knowing that I'm going to come outside of that with a better understanding of who I am, what I can do to make a bigger impact and be the best version of myself that I can be. I think that's where a lot of people struggle is, we all talked about, especially entrepreneurs, like, we want to grow. Like we have these people around us. We try to grow. We try to grow our mindset. We try to grow physically, emotionally, spiritually. But do we do really hard stuff, like personally, besides just like growing a company, besides just being a dad? That's hard. It's like I get why my dad was lazy and a bum and homeless somewhere that I don't even know where anymore. But I'm not, I'm choosing not to give up, right? And I want to be a better version for my kids and show them that they can do hard things as well. That's another reason why I'm training for the Leadville 100 and I haven't gotten there yet. But when I do,
Is that a 100-mile race or a
yeah, it's a
kilometer?
100 it's a 100-mile mountain bike race at 10,000 feet.
Just at crazy altitude. No worries, you know.
Yes, in addition to a 13,000-foot elevation gain. So you're going to
Whoa.
climb 13,000 feet. So Yeah, so it goes from 9,000 up and down, up and down, up and down, and the last, like the middle of the race, is 9 miles straight up this massive mountain, and you go to 12,400 feet, and then you go all the way back down and back up the mountains. But yeah, total
My
of
literal
13,000
first
feet.
thought was like, I bet Kirk has really strong glutes.
I would love those, and that's what I'm
You're
working
gonna have to.
towards.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're gonna have some really powerful glutes. I remember I was doing some cycling with my dad for like a year. Actually, after my mom passed, I was like, you know what, Dad, we just need to do this to kind of bond together to get through
Yeah.
this. And every Wednesday we went on like a 40 to 50 mile just road cycling trip,
Yeah.
and there was maybe like a 2,500 foot climb. So pretty small, but it was just
That's a lot
one
though.
climb. It
Yeah.
is in like a 40 or 50. Sorry, it ended up being maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours. I don't know, but
Yeah.
maybe it was only 25 or 30 miles. But anyway, it was a two and a. I'm getting confused at exactly what the gain was, but I just remember I would stand up. I think it originally took me 24 minutes and I got it down to like 18 minutes.
Yeah.
And my legs and glutes got so strong just from
Yeah.
doing that like once a week, that I can't imagine. And again, this is like sea level in Arizona. Like, I
Yeah.
can't imagine what you're gonna have to go through. When is that date? Is it circled on the calendar already?
So you have to qualify for it like the Boston Marathon. So I have,
Wow. So it's like a
yeah,
marathon of the mountain
it's an
biking
ultra
world.
marathon. So Lance Armstrong won it many years ago. Um, but it's mountain biking, and so it's a lot of. So I've tried to qualify one time, and I it was tough. I didn't
Were
get
you
anywhere
close?
close. No, I
No?
didn't get
Okay.
anywhere close. And it was my first mountain bike race too. So I was like, there was these teams and these guys that had calves like this big. I mean, this is how big my arm is. So it's like not even close. I was like,
So you're
okay,
you're a lean, mean, efficient
yeah,
endurance machine.
right. So to try to be super efficient, so like so much science behind the diets and the just the workouts and everything. But I want to show my kids that they can do hard things. I want to lead by example. Once again, back to the living vicariously through my kids. I want to show them that they can do hard things, not just say, you can do that. Well, Daddy, why have you never done that?
Mm.
I don't ever want my kids to ask me why have I not done that. And if I
No, that
haven't, I'm going to
yeah,
do it.
that's so powerful because I know I grapple with fear still all the time. And it's like one of my guiding principles. I've screwed up so many times, but what used to be live your
Same.
life in such a way that you're proud to tell your grandkids about it.
Yeah.
Not like, hey, you want to know about your grandpa? He had these opportunities and he really could have made an impact and he could have whatever, but he played it safe. But I'm hoping you live, bold. But
Yeah.
Grandpa, you didn't live bold? No, no, I didn't. I just lived what is it? Lives of quiet desperation.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I don't want that.
No, I want to be like that old war veteran that was, in the Gulf War or something, and I'm sitting with him. There's several people that come into our practice that I try to kind of schedule them to where they're going to be sitting just for a little while so I can sit with them and talk to them because they have amazing life stories. Amazing life stories.
Are you in danger of becoming a podcaster that's going to start interviewing people?
I am going to be a podcaster, but not for that. um, but that would be awesome. Like I
Hey,
got
did they
started
just hear it first here, or is this like public?
kind of. I don't.
Oh, Sandbox session, mic drop
Yes.
moment.
I mean, we also said that we were going to start an event together too. So we haven't
Oh,
done that. So
okay.
it's
So I bombed that, and it's because my wife, who is just good at being like Sean, you love saying yes, and you see things, but you need to get stuff in order before you can.
yeah,
So it's still gonna happen.
that's fine. We'll do it. It'll happen. But no, I it comes back to when I was in college. We at the student center I was a part of, we would go and on rotations and sit with these people who were older that were kind of shut in and couldn't get out very often. And there was this one woman that was in her 90s. She was from Austria, and she was in Austria during World War II as a little girl. And I would sit and have lunch with her, and she would just tell me all these crazy stories. And I'm just like, man, like, she had this crazy life and is now living in this small house by herself. Nobody to tell any of these things to, like, to be able to listen and just hear her was really cool. And so now to, I think that's the reason why I like Diary of a CEO so much, is because
What's
it's
his
just
name? I can never, because he's like, meaning
yeah,
Chris Williamson of
right,
Modern Wisdom. It's like, well, it's Chris Williamson, but the
right.
DOAC guy, I'm like, I don't know
No,
his name.
yeah, yeah. I don't remember his name either. I can hear him.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah.
And I love his podcast for the most part, but I that's why I love it so much, is because it's just people telling their stories, not giving tactical advice. Like, sure they do, but they tell who they are, not and to what, like you were doing too with innovation in dentistry. It was less tactical and
But dude, no
more
one, no
about the
one told
person.
me, oh, we like that you're actually like just highlighting a person and their story. Like the person I interview likes being seen and
Yeah,
likes getting a chance to, but I don't know if the listeners care. So thank you for at least validating that there's someone like you that at
yeah,
least is like, hey, I like the humanity. And that's kind of, I just wanted to bring something real. It's
yeah,
like, yeah, it's not just about who you are, Kirk. Oh, right now, we just need to get out the hacks. How can you serve the audience? You just got to drop some dimes. Really? Like, what about your life? What about the things you suffered? What about just, what you're going through? Like just real talk.
right.
And hanging out in the sandbox. I mean, throw some
Yeah,
sand every now and then. It's cool. We're playing.
yeah, yeah. It's fun. It's fun, and to be vulnerable. That's where authenticity and genuineness come from. I think when I started this journey, so I it was a year ago, about a month ago, that I started this just kind of rebrand. I know you just rebranded too, but this rebrand of, okay, I'm not going to do a million things and be a jack of all trades. I'm going to focus in dentistry, and I'm going to focus on the business side of dentistry, because that's 80% of practice ownership, and nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody keeps chasing the 20% of clinical that, oh, if I'm going to learn implants, that's going to fix my problems. Oh, I'm going to learn how to do cosmetic work, and that's going to fix my problems. But nobody thinks like, man, I can maximize what I know already. I spent $500,000 learning and make an incredible life and have the rhythm, the work life rhythm, not balance, to be able to enjoy my family still. That's why we have a 7-figure practice working 3 days a week. And that's why, like, I started this journey a year ago. And when I first started, I was like every other entrepreneur getting into a new industry. I was like, hey, look at me. Look, at this is what I'm doing. Like, this is what we did. And hey, look at these numbers. And hey, and then it just kind of shifted at the beginning of this year. And I was just like, I'm just going to put it out there, see what happens. And now I understand it a lot more when, like, people who have been in it for a long time, like in anything that you do consistently, media wise, like this, like content creation and stuff, it's just like, just put it out there and see what happens. And you connect way more and deeper when you're just authentic and genuine. And I ask this question every single time I get on a call with anybody, whether, it's a sales call or complimentary coaching call, whatever. But I ask, why now? Why me? Because I want a feedback loop. I want to know why they chose to have the courage to hop on a call with a complete stranger. And the number one thing I keep getting, at least in the last few months, is I just come across as super genuine. And
Cause
I
you
love
are.
that. Well, I love that because that's the goal. Like my goal is to just cut out all the fluff and just give it to you straight. And now I'm starting to see that more and more and more. And now the things that I'm doing is resonating with people, and it's just growing exponentially, which is just so cool to see. Um, but still, like, I think that's where the value of your podcast really came from, is just seeing, really, like, you could tell the difference between the people who are authentic and genuine and the people who are just trying to reach a new audience to sell something. And I mean, people can see through it, and I think that's the reason why, growth is exponential, is because you just kind of start seeing consistency, you start growing, you start understanding your market, and you start just being honest and just cutting out all the gimmicks and hacks and things that we were talking about.
Yeah, no, I love that perspective. Just really refreshing. It's validating. For me, I think the longest time I've been in my dad's business, 12 years ago, and then kind of started doing my own thing with his blessing, and even created Zana, where I'm staying in dentistry because my dad has a dental supply company, and I'm wanting to honor him. But I'm realizing, like, the more I get aligned with, like, again, identity and what comes alive in me, it's outside of dentistry too. And that's where I think part of my rebrand was like, yeah, I don't want to be pigeonholed in dentistry. I love dentistry. I'm so thankful for the dental friends that I have. Thankful for the connections. And yet I just want to shine my light in a way. So I don't know if I'm going to be working kind of with like men. I still don't know. Like there's so much that I'm just wanting to see like what resonates, which is this really tension, right? This tension of like there's authenticity, and then there's also like market receptivity, where it's like this woman, Megan Macedo, I think I mention her all the time. I hope I'm saying her name right. I saw her at a conference, and she was talking about the difference between like the business paradigm and the art paradigm. And she was saying the business paradigm is all about performance and, again, reading the market right and kind of hustling and striving. It's very contrived, and it's kind of all about, again, generating revenue, maximizing gains. Where the art paradigm is like what what comes from within, like what is that ache that only you can release into the world. And unfortunately, we don't always recognize great art in the season that it's given. Like Picasso wasn't recognized as amazing until, like, I don't know, 20, 30, maybe 50 years after his death.
Yeah.
Like, it would have been amazing if he knew the ways in which we appreciated his life's work. But he stayed true and he stayed honest. And with feedback, and there's nothing wrong with feedback, with intelligence, with data, it's just, is it preeminent or is it kind of secondary? Are we allowing ourselves to follow the voice in our head or the passion in our heart? And then also being kind of, 'cause it doesn't have to be either or. It's just about, and that's, so I mean, kind of that part of that is my passion, is I want to model that, so I can talk to my kids and be like, hey, like, you have permission to follow your hearts. I did. Look at where it took me. And I think that's where a lot of your authenticity comes from, Kirk, is that I feel like you give yourself permission to be who you are and show up with authenticity, with vulnerability. And it's just really refreshing. And again, you can layer strategy on top of that. You can layer the hacks on top of it, but they
Yeah.
shouldn't be central. They shouldn't be
Right.
preeminent, you know?
Right. And I think there's a marriage there. Like, I really do believe there's a marriage between the business and the art side, because coming from the music industry, I saw those
Starving artist.
broke, starving artists. And there's extremes on both sides, right? So, like, I saw the Wham documentary on Netflix. So good. Um and I it was really cool, like, at this, it goes through this arc of, like, they were struggling and struggling and struggling, but they stayed consistent. They stayed consistent, and they finally hit a break. And then the next album died, and then they finally hit another break, and then it died, and then they finally hit another break. But it got to a point where it was just systematic.
Mm.
There was no creativity in it. It was a formula to create hit songs, and they did so well all the time. So George Michael was just so fed up with it, which is why Wham ended up just kind of disbanding and he did his own thing. Um, but in business, I believe there's that marriage too. It's like you can't be the starving artists where you may be 20 years off from hitting the market right.
Right, right. Like Brendan always says, the money sustains the message.
Right.
So like being a hobbyist, okay, cool. But if you actually want to be a professional with intention,
Yes.
you need to not be afraid of receiving the value that you provide so that you can actually sustain your message. Or else it's sad. All the artists that can't keep doing what they're meant to be doing, they can't
Right.
release their music into the world. So it's like play the game. Don't have that be like the main driver as if you're trying to fake it, but play the game so that you can then work on maybe what is fully authentically you. I don't know. Yeah, I think again, there's probably harmony here.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean that's what Hermosi did, and that's what Gary did, and that's like they did something incredible, and now it's funding all of the stuff that they're doing to give to the world free. You can't just like sure. There's a period of time where I do free this, free that. I still do complimentary coaching calls all the time, and I do them once a week just to give back in general. But I I have to get paid, right? I have to provide for my family, and it also like when you pay for something, then it keeps you accountable. Like there's different things, but you have to understand that business side. But I can't just be free all the time. I can't just charge all the time because there's this really cool analogy that I like to use. So, you know where the Sea of Galilee is, right?
Roughly
The
speaking.
Dead Sea. Do you know where the Dead
Okay.
Sea is?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, in the Middle East, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So,
Never
you
been there.
have, yeah, I've never been there either. I will hopefully one day. I would love to go to the Middle East sometime. But so you have the Dead Sea, you have the Jordan River, then you have the Sea of Galilee, and then you have the ice melt that comes from the mountains. Okay, so the ice melt will come down and bring all the nutrients into the Sea of Galilee, thriving with life. Okay, thriving with life. And then the Jordan River takes those nutrients down and hits the Dead Sea. And the reason why it's the Dead Sea is because all of those nutrients have nowhere else to go. So if you think about this, if we're constantly giving, we're going to die. Okay? If we're constantly taking and not giving, we're going to be dead like the Dead Sea. If we're just, and that's where my dad was. Like he would just always mooch off of people and take and take and take. And this is something I've had to learn a lot because I naturally was the flip side where I wouldn't let anyone give. I didn't want anyone to help me out. I didn't want, and I still struggle with that sometimes. But I had a mentor who was like, no, if you don't let me give, you're denying me the gift to be able to give. Which is why you have to be like the Sea of Galilee. And there's a reason why it's thriving, is
Mm.
because it has the nutrients coming into it and then it pours out the nutrients down. So it's a give and take. It's like anytime somebody wants to pay for my meal now, I'm like, look, that's fine. I would love for you to be able to do that. I will pay for it if you don't. Either way, because I love the ability to do that for people as well. But it's give and take, the ability to receive and give, and if you're stingy in business and you're not willing to give of your time. It doesn't have to be finances, but give of your time, give of your finances, give of different things, resources, whatever. Give of your leadership skills to other people, pour into other people. Then you may be super successful and have a lot of money, but you won't have people around you that are worth anything. And I'm seeing these companies as I'm growing, and I'm loving them more and more. And you can tell the companies that are just so giving centric. They just want to give of their time. They want to give of their resources. They want to, like, yeah, if you, I have this cabin over here, like anytime you want it. I'm like, and I know they're being serious.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I would love to take you up on that. And I want to get there. Like we've talked about on the pod, like my goal, because dentistry is so isolating and they do it to themselves a lot of the times, most of the time, is I want to create this compound where we have a 20,000 square foot cabin that can host 30 or 40 doctors and their families and be able to have meals together and come together on a weekend and just get away where there's no cell phone service and we just go ride four-wheelers or go fishing or cold plunge or whatever, just get away and out into nature and try to just be ourselves. And the number one KPI for those retreats will be how many people cry,
Mm.
because now they're vulnerable. And it's not like all the other CEs they go to where they're wearing suits and they're trying to figure out how much better their practice is than anybody else's, or at least talking about how much better their practice is than anybody else's. That's why they're isolated. They're just constantly comparing each other. And I want to be able to give them that gift because people will give me that gift.
I feel like if dentistry doesn't say yes to this, you need to bring this to the world anyway. Because I'm just saying it's kind of like what I'm saying is like I've been trying to give certain things to dentistry, and some of it's been received really really well, and then other times I'm like I just feel like there's not always a fit, and part of it could be dentistry is kind of one of those like if you're one of us, we get you, and you're not one of them, but you're married to one of them. Am I right?
Yeah.
So by extension, you are.
Yeah.
It's like I'm never going to be a dentist, and maybe that means something, maybe it doesn't. Um, but I guess what I'm saying is like there could be a chance that, and it doesn't have to be a gender thing, but like I know you would kill it even if just 20 couples or people showed up at something like that. That would just be life giving because the way that you bring intention, the way that it sounds like you're really, really wanting to lean into this kind of like, I don't know, like a restoration of the heart, getting reconnected again, just in a deeper place where, the entrepreneurial imbalance can lead to heartless leaders, heartless influencers, heartless people that they just have to get hard. They have to get cold. They have to get distant so they can keep going, keep hustling. And I say it kind of often. The whole Henry David Thoreau quote that I grew up with that really hit me was the tragedy of life is what dies within a man or woman while they live.
Mm.
And I saw it. I saw it even in high school when all of a sudden kids are starting to realize, oh wow, mom and dad don't really love each other, or they're getting divorced, or why don't I have a dad? And all of a sudden it's like people went to alcohol and partying and all this stuff just to escape the fact that life kind of is hard. Life's kind of cold. And you got to harden up or else you just get hurt. And I'm like, okay, but what's the point of living life fully? Like living life like that. We got to soften back up again. We got to open up. We got to dare to risk getting hurt again so we can actually feel, to feel alive. To feel is what makes us beautifully and gloriously human. And it doesn't mean we're not going to come against struggles and pain. Most of the time, what we learn about life that is the greatest gift we can ever give is born through adversity. No one's like, hey, sign me up for that. A lot of times we want to take that eraser and erase that part of our life. We're kind of ashamed of it. But even you, with your upbringing, Kirk, I guarantee you, you're going to find gold in the fact that you didn't have an active, present, amazing, generous, kind father that showed you the ropes. And that sucks that that's the case. But because of that, there's also a gift you get because of what you understand, because of what you had to work for to understand the Father's heart in a way that might have been given to somebody else. So it was a hard fought lesson, but now it becomes something that you have that can liberate somebody else. And that's
Yeah.
also part of authenticity. It's actually like, hey, my life, this story that has happened, I can't change it. God, why? I don't necessarily need to know why, but what do you want me to do with it? What do you want me to do so that I can actually, the keys that I've earned through suffering, I can liberate and set other people free. I don't know how I got here, but it
Hey,
seemed like it made sense.
it made sense to me. And to your point too is, I mean, it really boils down to, you know, and I this is what I try to instill in my kids too is we don't learn from doing things well. I mean, I heard in a song the other day, 2020 me has nothing on me today. And I was like, oh man, yeah. It was like when we shut down for 2 months and didn't know how we were going to pay our bills and then got hacked 6 months later and went through different things. It was just like, there was a lot. But, the people who went through the 2008 meltdown, 2020 was like, oh, we've been through this. We'll be okay. Like, sure, the industry changed. We've pivoted. This is how we can do this. They had that experience, and so that's where wisdom comes is through failure. It's not. I mean, that I kind of like the quote, but I don't like the quote of a a smart man learns from his own mistakes, but a wise man learns from other people's mistakes. Like you
Right.
can't.
Because,
like,
yeah,
like you can in the sense of tactically, like we talked about, like with Hermosi and V and like all these people. But at the end of the day, like there's some times where you have to touch the stove.
yeah,
You've got to know that it hurts
yeah.
before you stop doing it. And there's some times where like I don't intentionally turn on the stove by any means, but there's some times like where I forget who said it, and I think I'm gonna butcher this too, but allowing our kids to do dangerous things safely, right? You've got to allow them to get hurt.
That's part of something I've heard Gary Vee say is like, if you raise your kids in the zoo, are you shocked when they get mauled in the jungle?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so they're in this bubble. So it's interesting because what you're saying has to do with kind of external realities in some ways. Maybe challenges, maybe difficulties, hard times. And yet, I think it's equally important. You mentioned earlier about your kids, how you want them to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. You want them to learn how to do difficult things. And one of the things I've really realized, it's also something I want to gift my kids with foundationally, is when you end up looking in the mirror and you see whatever's inside of you that's wretched, that looks like a monster, I want you to know how to realize that's not actually you at an identity level. That doesn't mean that you can't come to us because I'm not trying to tell my kids, oh, you're never going to be something that's ugly. You're never going to all of a sudden be selfish. You're never going to do something wretched. Oh my gosh, of course you are. You're going to screw up. You're going to do something completely unloving. You're going to look in the mirror and be super ashamed. And I still want you to come to me. And I want you to know I'm still going to hug you. I'm going to love you back to life. And I'm going to tell you that's not who you are because each and every one of us has had to face that monster or we run from it. And we just try to convince ourselves, no, like that's not me, right? Or we're in denial. And it's like, no. You need to be able to look at that wretch. I've faced the wretch in me and been like, oh my gosh, Kirk, I'm capable of messed up stuff. but it doesn't mean I messed up. Not at all. The fact that like Jesus died for me in the midst of my wretchedness, now I know I'm actually loved unconditionally.
Mm,
He didn't love me because I was good. He didn't
right.
love me because I figured out how to be mature and the best version of myself. I'm compelled to be the best version of myself so I can love those around me. But I'm fully capable of just being a wretch and not letting that impact how I see myself at an identity level.
Right. Because, like you said, we're all capable of some terrible things. And without quoting too many things, uh, I've watched pretty much every episode of Law and Order SVU, but um, there was one episode where they were talking and they were talking about how, you know, we all have those thoughts. The difference between us and them is that we don't act on it. And that that's something that I was recently talking with Kevin Tallman, actually the CEO of Mango, and we were talking about our kids and how, you know, we were trying to train our kids like we were talking about right now, and doing uncomfortable things and things. And he's just like, there are two things that we really try to instill in our kids. One is integrity. Like, you've got to be honest. Please come to me with whatever. You've got to be honest. But the second was consequences, and how good decisions have a good consequence and how the bad decisions have a bad consequence. But only good decisions can you control that consequence. Bad decisions don't lead to a consequence that you can control. So whether it's your parents control that consequence, or your teachers, or the law, somebody controls that consequence. So trying to allow yourself to make good decisions so that way you can control that consequence
Mm.
is super important. And we just started that. Now that he told me that, I'm like, oh man, that's good. Because my kids are in school now. My second's in kindergarten and my first is in second grade. And you know, they have friends that don't have parents like us. And I'm like, okay, how can we protect their minds in a way that they can be a good influence to them, and let them make mistakes, but still nurture them through that. Um,
And
but
that's it. That they
it's
can
so
make
hard.
mistakes, that they can screw up, and yet we call them to the upward aim. We don't say it's permissible. And this is, I think, the challenging thing is that when people run into, let's say, habitual screwing up, sin, whatever you want to call it, it's like, well, the option is I either feel like I'm insane for continuing to try for a different outcome, or I change the rules of what's right and wrong that change the narrative in my head so I don't feel condemned. And the world is like, hey, let's just change the labels so that no one feels shame.
Mm,
And I'm like, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
no.
Like, like, but if we can still detach what you did from who you are. So when my daughter comes to me, she's 15, and she called me on the phone the other day. I was at work, and she's like, "Dad, did mom tell you what happened?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Dad, I pushed Samuel, and it really hurt him, and he was crying." And I can tell she's so remorseful. I'm seeing her heart. Her heart
Yeah.
is, I feel terrible. I can't believe I hurt my brother. And I'm like, that's not who you are. You love your brother. I know you loved your brother, or that you love your brother. And yet, you know what? You felt upset. You let your feelings get the most of you, and you did something that you're not proud of. I forgive you. Whatever you feel is right to do as an apology to make it right, I bless you to do that. But I want you to know that is not who you are. It doesn't define you because you were incapable in that moment of being righteous. So here's the thing: we come to God originally because we know we need Him. We're screwed up. oh my gosh, God help me. Now, that's not everyone's story. Some people live righteous lives and they come to God because they're still not righteous enough. But I think most people realize, hey, I need help with this because I can't figure it out. But then 5 years in, 10 years in, this is the biggest religious trap. If we're doing a good job earning it, we're like, oh yeah, I'm doing a good job coming to God. I can keep coming to Him. And then something bad happens and you can't stop yourself from doing it. You fall, you screw up. And now you're like, how do I work my way back to God? Because I know better. I should know better. I shouldn't have done that. Now I have to figure out how to be worthy of being in the good grace again. And it's like, no way. You never did
No.
anything to deserve it in the first place. You need to
Right.
stay in that place of, then that's what I'm trying to say. My kids, you're not doing anything to deserve your dad's love. I love you and I will always love you because you're mine and you belong to me. You're of me. That's the same exact way the Father feels, except times a million.
Right.
Unconditionally loved and accepted. So when you do something wretched, you do something that is you're so ashamed of, do not let that at all touch. Well, that means there's something wrong with me. That means I'm defective. That means I'm an outcast. Because when you believe that, do you run to God or do you run away from Him?
Yeah, and there's a song that I think about all the time when I'm messing up with my kids. Is the line was, "I want to be just like you because he wants to be just like me," and it's so hard to find that balance. And but to your point of
But you just said
n-
it. You know, because you know, Kirk,
right.
you have that conscience. You know, man, I that wasn't in love. I yelled. I didn't instruct my child firmly. I yelled.
Yes.
And I wouldn't talk to a client that way.
I don't know.
Oh, that's not true. For me, I feel
No, yeah,
like
I wouldn't.
I can be so condescending to my kids.
Yeah.
And so what do I like? What do I do? Do I believe, well, that just means, Sean, you're just a bad father and you're doomed to be a bad father? It's like, no,
No. It's a
that's
lapse in
that's
judgment.
not who I am. And I gotta find a way to just receive grace for the ways in which I'm inadequate.
And
Newsflash.
also I there was a I forget who it was. I think it was Navy SEAL that was talking about this. And it wasn't like Jocko Willink or Leif Babin, who are amazing, but he was talking about how he had a super hardcore father, like as the reason why he went into the Navy and became a Navy SEAL. But he said, I loved him nonetheless because he would apologize. I have a friend who's our associate minister, who's also my biking partner, and he was just saying, I mean, yeah, our dad disciplined. I mean, he had a stick, a love stick that literally was carved love on it, and would beat us with it. But I never questioned whether or not our father loved us or not, because he was also there and engaged and was willing to accept and let us know when he made mistakes. And so that's something that, I never saw. So I'm having to learn from all these other people. And this man is, I mean, he has, I learned a lot from him because he had 5 boys.
Oh my gosh.
5 boys. And my wife, before we just had our little girl. She's the 1 year old. But before we had her, we had 3 boys, and we were about to have our fourth. And my wife was going to my friend's mom who had these 5 boys, and she's like, "How did you do it? Like, how did you know these 3 boys are gonna kill me? If we have a fourth one, I don't know what I'm gonna do." And we had our little girl, thankfully. Oh man, it was so nice because she is so awesome, and to be able to see the difference there. But to the point of like, I try to apologize to my kids after I discipline them. I always hug them and I always tell them I love them, and they never question whether or not I love them because I'm there and I'm engaged. Am I always? No, but I try my best and I always apologize. Like, hey, if I flew off the handle and I yelled whatever it was, I did something out of anger, not out of discipline, then I try to sit them down and say, look, I am sorry. I did not I did not mean to do that. That is not, what I need to do. I apologize. I ask them if they'll forgive me, because we talk about how you have to forgive. Um, and I also talk about it's both sides. Like, it's not just me. It's also them. So like we have to be able to resolve things by, like, hey, this is what I want you to work on. I don't say like, hey, it's your fault. Okay. That's why I flew off the handle. But I talk about like, hey, I'm going to work on this. Okay. I'm going to work on not being so condescending. I'm going to work on not yelling. I'm going to work on this. Can you work on doing XYZ? Is that something that you can do? So I'm going to work on this. You work on that. And then let's get better together. So far, it's been working. I will see the repercussions later on, but and see how it worked. But it's really cool because, when I think that I am just doing a absolute terrible job as a father, but then right afterwards they want to come sit with me in my lap and watch TV. And I'm just like, I don't know what this is.
Kirk, I'm so glad we're talking about this because there's no point being successful as an entrepreneur and then losing your family. And I don't know anyone that doesn't have regret if they don't have their children's hearts when they get older. And that's why that is like my number one. It's like, yeah, like I need to have intimacy. I need to be able to see them let me see them and actually know and be known because they're my children. Like I love them. Like I want to be in their lives and actually just get to be like friends when they get older. Like I want to just enjoy them. And if I didn't have their hearts, oh my gosh, that'd be a regret. Do you know Dr. Eric Roman?
Yes.
Okay, fascinating man. Love this guy. He has a model. He calls it the authentic trauma. Like it's an authentic trauma model where he's actually saying like, hey, it's almost like parents being authentically who they are need to traumatize their kids.
Yeah. I mean, that's
As
kind
long
of
as they're doing it authentically, meaning be
right.
who you are, do it the way that you are so it's real. And they're going to get traumatized either way. You want it to come from you because you're the one that can, in humility and with a repentant heart, be like I'm so sorry. Like that wasn't right.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. And in demonstrating that humility, you will be able to walk in meekness and actually, they say a heart won in mercy is one in the tightest grip. So you're extending mercy to them when they screw up. And by doing that, when you humble yourself, it's like you don't know how many times my kids are like, Dad, oh my gosh, like I know you love me. Like I totally forgive you. And I'm like, I haven't even finished apologizing yet. Like, I want to own every single thing I did that wasn't fair. Like it was beneath the dignity of who you are as a human for me to give you that tone. That wasn't right. I'm really sorry. And it's like, because we screw up. Oh my gosh, we screw up. I don't need to be perfect. I don't want to be perfect. I want to be me and on purpose traumatize them, according to Dr. Eric Roman,
Well, but
and be
like
able to
Gary Vee
teach them how
talks
to
about,
heal.
right, right. Because like Gary Vee talks about too, is like people will ask him like, okay, well, how do I protect my kids? And he was like, you want them learning from you, not somebody else. Because if they don't learn it from you, they will learn it from somebody else.
Ooh, that's good.
And so like trying to, and I'm not saying you should expose your kids to crazy things, but
Well, my parents put a cigarette in my mouth and
oh gosh.
like
Yeah.
they made me smoke. So I would actually try in front of them instead of feeling peer pressure around friends someday.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to smoke again. I was just like, this is horrible. I just put my mouth up to like a muffler. What the heck? So that was kind of their whole approach. They're like, your brother wants to try, so you have to try. I'm like, I don't want to try.
Okay. Well, that's one way to do it. Yeah. But to that point, right? It's allowing them to do dangerous things safely.
Cold
Like
showers, love rods,
cold
smoking
showers.
cigarettes.
Yes. Yes.
We've got it all. I mean, this
Oh
is going to be
man.
so quotable.
Oh man. This is I'm wondering what the comments are going to be in this one. Um,
Child
but
Protective Services is coming after both of us.
I hope not. Man, but that's the thing. It's like you have to, and obviously, like we're still learning. You more so than I right now because I'm still, young. I still have very young kids. So I'm still learning and trying to figure it out, and just like everybody else. But I hope that the things that I'm doing that were different than what I had will have trauma, sure, like to what we're talking about, not intentionally, but just in general. Like, I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm going to show them how to be a better person in general and try to fix those problems. Um, because ultimately, that's how we, like every relationship that we have as entrepreneurs and business leaders and spouses and everything else, is like that's how we get better, is by sitting in it and being willing to have those difficult conversations. Like, nobody likes having those difficult conversations when your wife comes to you and is like, "Hey, we need to talk." And I know what's coming, but in order for that relationship to continue to blossom and grow and not go the other way, I need to sit in this and I need to work at it. And I don't need to neglect it, because ultimately that's why we've been married for 11 years. That's why you've been married for as long as you have. And why people have been married for so long is like they've not neglected it. They've done the work. They work together to make it right. And so I want to work together with my kids to make it right.
Dude, I really think I'm just 5 years ahead of you in everything. Meaning, like, I'm 16 years married, 5 years literally older than you, and my oldest kid is a little older than 5 years because maybe we started. But I'm just saying, like, really,
Yeah.
it's like that is really cool. What was I gonna say? Nope, nope. I lost it. Right at the very end of everything, it was. Oh man, yeah. It's probably not gonna come. Oh no. It was about you. Oh yeah. So you basically get qualified through actually just submitting to the roles that you have as like a husband and father. There's nothing a client or there's nothing that someone in the marketplace can say to me that's going to ruffle my feathers, because I'm actually in committed relationship with people that can hurt me. It's not the person in the marketplace. Are you kidding me? They don't have any power to hurt me. It's my wife, it's my kids that I'm completely open to, that know me, and we have to navigate the tough conversations. We have to navigate the times I disappoint them. We have to navigate the times that I keep falling short and I screw up. And like, if I can get through that and I can learn how to listen to my wife and be empathetic and actually see her when she's in the midst of her pain that I caused, she has permission to really hurt me with her words. I don't give that to other people. So when all of a sudden it's like, oh, people are like, oh my gosh, like, how difficult is it for you when there's this tension? I don't have that at work. Why? Because I learned at home. Like, that's where it's almost like the qualification of an elder biblically.
Yeah.
It's they have their house in order, so now they can do public ministry.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And it's the ultimate sandbox.
Kirk, I appreciate you, man, in so many ways. I look forward to the day that we actually get to meet in person, because as much as I'm fond of these times, there's something about someone's actual presence. After an event is over, just grabbing a meal and just getting to be with you and kind of hear more about your family. Look up to you in the natural because you're, quick math, 5 inches taller than me. You'll be towering over me. I'll be looking at those iron quads of yours and huge calves from your crazy mountain biking adventures.
Yeah.
And just to think that tomorrow is a really, really big day for you, man. Just sending prayers, knowing that you're gonna be present, open. I remember I had high expectations for kind of something similar to that at one point in time, and the first few hours I was disappointed because it wasn't happening yet. And I just had to give grace to myself and just give freedom and permission to just be and let whatever is supposed to happen happen.
Yeah.
So I'm just excited. I'm excited to hear what comes of it. You know, who knows? Maybe a book comes of it. Maybe just a little bit more inner alignment and healing and wholeness. Who knows? But I'm just a big fan of you, man. I'm in your corner if you need anything. And I just appreciate you just showing up with such generosity today, man. Thanks so much for joining me in the sandbox.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.